You are listening to the Small Town Big Arts podcast. I'm your host, Jeffrey Kirshner, the CEO of the Academy Center of the Arts in Lynchburg, Virginia. In my own work as an arts leader, I have found it difficult to access resources for arts organizations and artists serving smaller communities. On each episode, Small Town Big Arts sets out to drive conversations and provide inspiration for those serving smaller communities through the arts. If you like what you hear, please rate and review us and share with your friends and colleagues who are working to promote the arts in smaller communities across America. You can also learn more by visiting us at smalltownbigarts.com. Well, welcome to this month's episode. I'm very excited about this episode because we are going to be talking with a neighbor of mine, a former and current collaborator as well here in Central Virginia. We're going to be speaking with the artistic director of Wolfbane Productions based in Appomattox, Virginia. And Dustin Williams is the artistic director, and he's a graduate of Lynchburg College right here in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is now University of Lynchburg. But you know when Dustin graduated from University of Lynchburg because he's still at college. And he studied theater there. And I certainly know that was one of the first times that I saw Dustin's talents was on that Lynchburg College stage here locally. And he also is a graduate from the William Esper Conservatory in New York City, where he spent some time before he came back to his hometown to form a theater company, which we're here to talk about today, and that journey of Appomattox and Wolfbane Productions. So, Dustin, welcome. I'm really excited to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, so I want to start. With every episode, we want to give the audience a sense of the community where you are. Dustin and I were talking right before we hit record, and I just came from the Radically Rural Conference in New Hampshire. And one of the big themes of that conference was, rural looks very different. Small town looks very different depending where you are regionally, who is in that community. So let's talk a little bit about Appomattox. Tell me a little bit about the town as well as the county, right? Because there's the town and the county, and I know that is a difference. So share a little bit about it: population, makeup, culture. Tell me about Appomattox.
Yeah, you're right. We had to learn all that when we started this. The town and county, two separate governments in this little tiny rural place. Appomattox town is tiny. The county has about 16,000 people in it, and it stretches pretty wide. We're just like 30 minutes north or 30 minutes east of Lynchburg, which is your city. It's a little bit bigger, and then 30 minutes west of Farmville, which is I think they have like 25,000 there, so it's somewhere in between. So we're like right in the middle of that. It's very rural. It's, Main Street has no stoplights. There's 3 stoplights in town now, I think, everywhere. So we do have a Walmart now, so things are big.
Oh man, that is actually.
I know it's a big deal.
It is actually a pretty big deal.
You used to have to drive that half hour to go to either one. But anyway, yeah, it's a big farming, agriculture town. Very, there's one school system. So whoever you're in kindergarten with, you are graduating high school with, going all the way up. So everyone. If you don't know them, you know their family, and somebody knows somebody. It's that kind of town. The unique thing about Appomattox, I think, is that it is the history there is where the Civil War ended. So we have the historic park here, which is awesome. And Wolfbane kind of, we'll get to all this, but I guess Wolfbane started kind of everywhere. We were just nomadic forever, just doing what we want to do. And then when we decided to make it an official nonprofit, we decided to settle down here where home was, because it's where it mattered to me and to the team. And we kind of started looking at the town and realized the park has like nearly 100,000 visitors a year. And
yeah, that's a big part of that ecosystem, right? That 100,000 people are coming into the community. Yeah.
And we really, when we got here, I think there was one person that was in charge of tourism and Parks and Rec, and other board member things. So they weren't really there was no one to tell them, you're here, now go try this, now go do this. And so in starting a company here, that kind of fell into our plate as well. And we've been kind of, we didn't intend to get as entangled in the community, but we did, and we are.
But there you are. Yeah.
There we are.
Well, and I will just share, I will also share for listeners that one of the things that's really impressive about Wolfbane Productions is is the level of relationships that it has forged over its time, which now, Dustin, how many years have you all been doing it?
We are in our 16th year of
16.
doing shows, and we're in our what 7th year of being a nonprofit, 8 years of being a
Okay.
nonprofit. So
16. You guys got your driver's license. You're ready to
we can
you're
drive
ready
this
to hit the
year.
road.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so yeah, but the relationships are really clear. We had my organization had just gone into Appomattox recently to do kind of a meet and greet with community members, and it was so clear the impact that the organization has made. Obviously, uh, in ways that you could imagine in regards to being pointed to as the major cultural organization or institution there in the community, but even more widely. I mean, Dustin was just sort of speaking to really figuring out how to do all of these various things oriented around tourism and connectivity to all these different activities that are going on within the county. It's really clear that that work has also meant that you have had touch points across the public and private sector, across the community. That's really impressive. And people can tell your story. And I think that that's a real sign of community being really ingrained into a community, committed to a community, is when the community can tell your story as well as you can tell your story, and people
That's
like to
cool to
tell
hear.
your story.
Oh,
So with that, Dustin, tell us a little bit about. So you're from Appomattox, so this is your home community. Tell me a little bit about coming back, the relationship with home, connecting back to Appomattox in this new way, because I think that might be a good preface for us as we begin to talk about the theme of this episode.
of course, yeah. Yeah, I'm from here. I grew up here. My dad lived a little bit everywhere when he was little, but he always called Appomattox home. And so when he married my mom, they bought a farm next to where he grew up, and he started a body shop in Appomattox. So that's where I worked all the way through high school and college and summers and stuff. So I was Gene's boy for the most of my life here. Still am to local people. It's like, oh, that's Gene Boy's theater company over there. Um, so that's how I'm known. And but yeah, I mean, I love it here. I grew up like I think some of the we're right at the foothills of the Blue Ridge. It's gorgeous, and I had the privilege of growing up on a farm. My parents have a farm, and so I played in the woods and was that weird geek outside doing that stuff all the time. And now I get to bring audiences into that same forest that I grew up playing in, which is kind of a dream I didn't know I had. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I mean, Appomattox, I've always loved it. I love the people here. I never we Wolfbane started like haphazardly. I guess I'll tell you that whole story. Wolfbane started haphazardly, just a group of friends of us wanting to do theater. I was in a break between moving from New York to LA. I had 3 months here, and we put together this little team to do Bat Boy the musical because I decided I really wanted to do it, and I had a bunch of friends that were around that had nothing to do, and we had to come up with a name for the company in order to do that one show, and it was a hit it, quit it, let's get it done. And then we never thought we'd do it again. And then the next year we had 2 months available. We all came back and did it, and then slowly it just became this fun thing. Really, until my husband Ken got involved. He's a business guy. He's a Broadway boy, and I describe Wolfbane as a brewery. I say I can make the beer, but don't put me in the restaurant with the finances or anything like that. That's his stuff. So,
Yeah.
so he really saw that we had something, and we the fun part is we built an audience without knowing we were building an audience. We never really intended to make it a business, so we were just doing what we want to do and what people were responding to. And then he's like, that you got 300 people coming tonight, you can make this a thing. And so he basically headed up making us a nonprofit and showing us how to be a business. And so then, yeah, we ended up that same kind of thing. We ended up looking for a place to do Evil Dead, the musical, and no one would let us do a splatter zone or this R-rated show anywhere. And so my parents had just had a logger that got too overzealous on their property and had cleared out too much of a place on this slope. And it was an open slope with a creepy cedar tree there. And I was like, what if we do it here? And don't tell the fire marshal, but we ran extension cords from my parents' house that first year and ran a hose for the splatter zone and did it there. And we thought no one would come because it's in the middle of the woods at Appomattox. Again, it was just like for a niche audience. And we thought this will be fun. Let's not spend money on this. And people came from everywhere, and it ran for 5 years. And it was the start of our pack. And it's really what brought us here to Appomattox as a company.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about your story, Dustin, is that I think when probably people, if you would describe to people, okay, we're gonna take Appomattox, Virginia. We're going to, which is has history tying back to the Civil War. and this is, farming community in Central Virginia. Um, the work that you all do is really dynamic and pushes social political boundaries very often. The splatter zone, because of comfort level, this isn't like, and I think what I love about it is that you have built a loyal audience and a really, I mean, you confirm or tell me if I'm wrong about this, but also probably a really dynamic audience in regards to its politics, its worldviews, and I think you all are kind of more positioned than many to really be connective tissue in a time that so much pulls us apart, and really shows us that people can surprise us, right? Audiences can surprise us, what they
Absolutely.
do, right?
Yeah, I think it's been that's like the coolest thing about this, and I think one of the things that the actors enjoy the most, and we get a lot of meaning from, is every show you'll have people pull up in four wheelers that have never seen a show before, and every show it's somebody's first play they've ever seen. And a long time ago, we learned never to use the word theater in our branding because it scared people away. And I
Oh,
got that too. I grew up in Appomattox, and I never went to see plays. My mom made me do drama one class my junior year, which is what got me into theater. But I never wanted to do it because I heard Shakespeare or Broadway, and I thought stuffy, rich people, boring stuff. And I was like,
yeah,
yeah, I don't
yeah,
want to see
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Or like,
yeah, yeah.
or church plays. It's they're what going in, and you just don't think entertainment. And so we've been really careful to advertise it as something different. And like I told the story the other day that we had a lady come up after Macbeth last year. We did Macbeth in our pub, and this lady came up and she was talking to me about it. It was her first time at the pack, first show she'd ever been to. And I was like, yeah, we do a lot of plays in town. We're about to do a play called Noises Off over here. And she goes, oh, you guys do plays too? And I was like, what do you think you just saw? That was,
I
it's so
love it. I
Shakespeare.
love it, man.
But it's,
I
yeah, it's
love
very
it.
it's a gateway drug, I guess, for theater.
Yeah, and even share a little bit too. You referenced the pack, which I think is I go ahead and tell a little bit about that too, because I think that also adds to this too, right? I think the way I would describe anybody listening to this is that a lot of Wolfbane's fans feel like the fans of a band, right? Like there is a
Yeah,
bit
I
of,
think
and so talk a little bit about, because a lot of this, a lot of branding is important here, I think, for listeners in smaller communities thinking about things like this, even this idea you're not going to call it theater because that's going to push people away or turn people off. Talk a little bit about things like the pack too. Talk a little bit about that, the branding, the identity, the way that you all create something, because I think this is going to lead us into the theme of this episode, which is I really want to talk about the culture building that Dustin has done in Appomattox over 16 years to build up really a number of artists who return year after year to Appomattox, Virginia to do theater. And it's really incredible. And so talk a little bit about that, the pack, some of the things that are orient you all a little bit more like a rock band than a theater company.
I love that description. I'll take it. No, it's the pack is our performing arts center, so it's a brilliant play on words.
Yeah, and
But
it's a
we
great play on words. It's an awesome play on words.
nice.
It's great.
So
Yeah.
stupid, so stupid, but we love it. But it's again, it's this place where we did Evil Dead and started just out in the it's woods. It's part of my family's farm, so to get there, I mean, the road was a dirt road until like 10 years ago. So it's down this rickety country road, and one of the setbacks and things I love about doing theater in this rural space is that you have people coming down like, somebody recommended me go see, right now we're doing Jekyll and Hyde. Somebody recommended me to go see Jekyll and Hyde, but I'm driving down this creepy country road. There's no way this is going to be good at all. So we have these great lowered expectations when people come in, and then, you have Broadway performers there in the pub. It's great. Um, so and it's just they're going out in the middle of the woods, and I think it's just disarming. Like, we just did a Midsummer Night's Dream out there. It was a 90s pop version of that, but it was deep in the woods. We did a Crucible a couple years back, and we had to hayride people deep out in the woods, and we did it by firelight, out in the forest, so it felt different. So we try to do very I guess immersive is the word, just very different. We don't tend to have a stage that stays up. We
Yep.
try to make it an experience. I think I had a conversation with another guy recently about like where the inspiration like that stuff comes from. I was like, I think the Jaws ride at Universal Studios was my like aha moment as a director, because that's kind of where I always try to go with an
Yeah.
audience, is give them that ride, that experience. It's a little more personal, I guess.
Yeah, and I think one of the themes that we found in a lot of the organizations, or that I found, like Royal We, that I have found in interviewing um, different organizations across the country that is a common thread with success is this ownership of where you are, where the artwork is happening. Um, and it embraces the circumstances of Appomattox. It embraces the landscape, these woods, what you all had to work with. But since and I do want to get to the culture building here in a moment, but I do want to give a little bit more background. Since though your performance spaces have expanded, so talk a little bit about that too, because I do think obviously people really do look to you and look for you for these immersive experiences. And I will share, I think that this is key, um, and should be. I think a lot of theater companies should look at this, right? I think more and more, right? Think experiences that we know we're in real space and real time, right? We know it's immediate, right, is really important, I think, right now in regards to theater when we're fighting against so much that's passive, that is, alluring to people, whether that's streaming services or other things. And so, talk a little bit about the expansion of your performance spaces too, because that also might be helpful for people to have some context.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to write on that, I think I mean, you can watch Netflix and if you go to a live thing, it better feel so different than what you can sit at home and watch for, nothing because it's easy. It's really easy not to go to things. So it's better to make it something that you
Yep.
can't get anywhere else. So, but yeah, we do have, so we have our space at the pack, which was one little stage. Now it is two stages and we built a pub there. So right now we're doing, we call it the pub. It's a big open air pavilion and we did the Scottish play there last year, and then we're doing Jekyll and Hyde there this Halloween season. And so it's again completely immersive. The audience comes in. There's tables that are the stage, and the actors act on that. And then we have another space in town that I'm at right now. This is our Wolf Den space. It's our indoor space, and we are in a plaza, Triangle Plaza. We are next to the Family Dollar and the Pizza Hut in the
I love
parking lot
that. I
here,
love it.
and it's another
There
like
is a brewery there though too, right?
there is. We
Yeah.
just got a loose shoe two a couple years ago, so and they have a
Yeah.
Wolfbane beer now, so we love them. But yeah, we it's just this little. It was a Sunday morning brunch place when I was little, and we were looking for a place to do Sweeney Todd a couple years back. I wanted to do it in the meat shop, and we found this, and it was hadn't been used in a decade or more, so it was nice and gross and weird walls and stuff. So we said this is perfect. We moved in, and we again never intended to keep using it. So here we are 5 years later, and we just did Clue in it this year, and it's been good to us. So we've outgrown it now, which is a good problem to have. But it's been awesome. Our you're talking about our connections with the town. Our landlord here is amazing because he's been using us to get other businesses. And when we came
Yeah.
here, the Family Dollar and a haircut place, and now there are four restaurants and the brewery and Joe Beans and the Pizza Hut in the plaza here, which has been cool because he brings potential businesses in on show nights to show them how full our parking lot gets, and like they could be your clientele if you come here. So it's been
Yeah,
really cool.
Dustin, you all did that. You all did that. You made that happen. And I think that that's important for everybody here too. And I love this because this is a smaller town, a shopping center that we know that retail is right now in America is really difficult, and particularly if the Walmart moved in, right? Kind of
Exactly.
joking about that before, but that is really serious for the
For real.
ecosystem of a shopping center like that. And I can tell you right now, man, that Loose Shoe brewery would not be there if it weren't for you all. Those restaurants probably would not be there if it weren't for you. And Appomattox also, I'll share with the audience, they know that, which is also really great. I think. I mean, that's my sense. Like in talking to people, they really understand. Wow, this is providing our community something that is really important to our vitality and the sense that you are in a place that is on the rise as opposed to something that is declining. And so that's a big deal.
It's Yeah, it's been really I think like we hear back from the businesses so often that it's really cool of you to hear that to say that the town knows that. But we hear back from like our partners at the Babcock House. Ken started a Experience Appomattox campaign, which is our tourism campaign that has got all these businesses involved now. And we with each other share like our numbers. And whenever Wolfbane has a show in town, it's overwhelming and wonderful to see like their numbers rise so much. And Babcock House is booked for the month of October because of Jekyll and Hyde, which is really
Yeah.
a really cool thing to see.
And I just was at this year I was at Wolfbane's annual gala, and you guys call it a gala. Everybody calls things
I
different.
think so. Yes,
You guys call it
I
does
think
it
that's what we
whatever,
call it.
their annual fundraiser. But I
Something.
also really
Yeah.
appreciated it, they did it here at our venues here in Lynchburg, and, very often, what people will do here in Lynchburg is obviously work with some of the same catering companies and food establishments that exist here in Lynchburg, but Wolfbane brought Babcock House here into Lynchburg to to cater the events, and that loyalty to that local business, and it exposed me to the restaurant. I didn't, and since even recently somebody asked me, they were going to Appomattox. I can't remember who it was, and they were like, "Is there a place I should eat?" I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you should eat at Babcock House,"
Hey,
and
yes.
and it worked because totally because you brought them up here, and it was a reference point, and so I think, this again, I think we think about small town and arts delivery and how, again, being a part of the ecosystem, and then and this the being a feeder for all these other things in regards to quality of life and economic development. All right, so with that lead in, which is good because I think we need all that context to talk a little bit. But I want to talk today, just as a theme for this particular episode, is I have noticed there are different models for some of different organizations and smaller communities in regards to the artists that are involved in the organization's work. And there's a wide range of organizations. Some organizations are very much uh, developing and supporting artists that are living and working inside of a community. Some organizations bring artists from the outside in, and then they become a part of that ecosystem, sort of feeding that ecosystem and then enriching each other. Like I think of Worm Farm Institute in Wisconsin, where they're commissioning these artists from places like Chicago and Milwaukee, and they come in and they work on these farmers' land. They create these really cool things, and they kind of they integrate themselves into the local businesses, and then they take that experience back with them to the urban environment, and they also bring their skills from the urban environment in. I sort of think of you all as a little bit like a hybrid, which I
Yes.
think is a good way of kind of going about this too. But one of the things that you'll see if you go to a Wolfbane show is that you see actors returning year after year. And one of the things I've noticed in a small community is that even if these individuals are sort of just transplanting in for the moment, they become a part of the community. Like people know them, they recognize them, they're looking for them in the next show. There's probably like a little bit of, again, well, I think you all are like a rock band, but people like become like fans of particular actors, right? And want to see those actors again. So talk a little bit. There's lots of ways we can go here because I want to talk a little bit about what the actors get out of it, but talk a little bit to me about what the audiences get, and talk a little bit about your model and how you put together your cast, your teams, like how that works for you guys.
Yeah, we I think the core of that is we learned a long time ago that doing Wolfbane theater is different than doing theater in like a standard place. If you're doing theater in the woods with blood and mud and bugs, you need a different type of person and you need a person you can trust. So we're not, even when we're high, because we hire about 50-50 local and out of town. So we go to New York. We're going to New York in November again for auditions for next season. And we cast from both. But one of the biggest things we tend to watch out for is it's not just the talent we're trying to cast for. It's also if you're down to play, if you're down to have fun with that, and if we can live with you for 6 months in the woods or 6 weeks in the woods,
Yeah,
during a
I'm sure
show.
it's pretty
So
intimate. I have no doubt.
it is because you get to be like family by the end of it. And But I think we definitely take into mind because you're right. Like people have big time favorites, and like we'll announce a show long before we even thought about casting it. And the biggest thing is people like, I wonder what Steven's going to be, and I wonder what different actors are going to fit into. I could see them in this role, and people get excited, and they really do. When we have new actors, we have a welcome day, first day of school kind of thing, and we tell them like, be careful what you say. Don't be mean to restaurants in town. Don't whatever, because people will know who you are and you will be a
Yeah,
known
yeah, you're not
number.
invisible.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, you're not on Broadway, but here you are. So it's like, just be careful. But yeah, it's been really awesome to see like, cause some of them like Hubbard, who I think I mentioned before, but he's been in almost every show since the very beginning. We have people like Hubbard Bev. There's just a team that come and they are just audience favorites, our favorites. You can put them in something and trust them. And I don't know. I think one of our big things, and one of the things we hear back, this is, I guess, from the actors' point of view more than the audience, but I again, and it kind of goes back to what you're saying about like the live theater, intimate theater versus Netflix. I want the actors to play. If they're not having fun, if they're not enjoying themselves, if it's not a live breathing thing, um, it's why are you doing it? You could film that and watch it on TV. And like we just have two of our actors who've been working with us for 5 years now. They were the first ones in the Den, our Sweeney and Lovett, are in Jekyll and Hyde right now, and they just left a year-long stint on the Sound of Music International Equity Tour, and that's a paint by numbers tour. You know, if you don't move your finger at the right moment, the
Right.
director will yell at you for that. And they every night have just been so gracious and just like, Dustin, I can't tell you how much it means that we can play and that I can be in a
Yeah,
different place
yeah,
here and I can have this moment and mess with the audience. And I think our patrons really respond to that sense of what are they going to do tonight? What's going to be different? And to knowing who they are. Like it's amazing how many people, you know, one of our employees works at a drive-through in town. One of our actors works at a drive-through in town, and he says like he gets accosted every day after his show of people coming through and be like, "I saw you last night. We loved you." And it's just such a nice like local celebrity thing that happens for our audiences, and they feel like they get to know you, which is cool.
yeah. So tell me a little bit. I mean, you did actually. You've started to touch on this. You know what brings the actors back. So there is the culture that you build in and around the art making itself, right? Which is playful and positive and fun. What else do you think draws the actors back over and over again? And what are you all doing consciously to create an environment where that's going to happen?
Yeah, I think across the board, like one of our big things is to make sure they are enjoying themselves. Like we hear over and over again, like horror experiences from theaters that have just been like, it's I don't know why these people are doing what they're doing because it's just a bad experience for everybody. And my
Mhm.
thing is, if they're not having fun, like I'm willing to change whatever it is. If they don't feel safe, if they don't feel, making sure they feel completely supported so that they can have fun on stage because the audience won't have fun if the actors are faking it. They're going to have fun for that. I also think one of the biggest things is all the stuff we were talking about before. When they come here and they are ingrained in the community, they are able to see and one of the coolest things is they go away for a year and are able to see the difference every year in these little snapshots of how much it's mattering to the community and to
Oh, wow. Yeah.
that their performance is doing something more than just selling tickets. They're mattering to people, and it's like with all of our outreach groups, we're involved with Appomattox for Equality now, and our board members have started the Feminine Project, which two of our president and vice president are social workers in town. So they have a microscope on the needs of the community, which is super helpful. And so they've been able to kind of start these small groups that are through Wolfbane, using Wolfbane's reach to help the community in very, just very specific non-theater ways. And I think the actors are so emboldened by that that they're able to see, this is not just like it really does matter. They're doing something that you can be doing Jekyll and Hyde. That's just a scary Halloween thing, but you're doing something that you can sleep at night knowing you're mattering to a people at the end of the day. So I think that really does matter to them, and they've been really vocal about it. And the more the board has opened up the actors chance to come out and speak at events and be a part of Pride, be a part of whatever it is that's community outreach, and that really does matter to people. And the audience will directly tell them like, this is my only chance to see theater, this is my only entertainment. And so many people like, this is the we saved up for a month for this night of Jekyll and
Mm,
Hyde. So you
yeah.
can feel that with our actors. There's never a throwaway show. It's like there's never a moment where it's like, they're in a 16 show run, they're not going to be one to throw away because somebody saved up all they had to come to that Thursday night show, and it
Yeah.
matters so much. And that I we're very lucky with the people we have, and we cast they're just really good people, and it shows. I think.
That's really powerful. I mean, I think, I love this notion that they come back year after year, A, and one, and see gradual change in the community over time from their presence. But but also, I do think, we both have had experiences in larger markets, and I do think it's very hard to sort of feel any real clear, tangible impact from the work that you do. I mean, you can maybe on a person by person basis, or and I'm not saying that there aren't organizations that are large in scale that can feel impact, but it can be hard to do. And certainly as an individual artist, and an actor and a performer, you're sort of jobbing from show to show, theater to theater. And I do think to be in a smaller community where it is one of the benefits of smaller community, you can feel and see the impact directly in ways that are really pretty profound. And And I love, you mentioned people saving up to see the show. That's, that's that's really powerful again too, right? This is not again going back to your branding, right? This is accessible, it's down to earth. So I want to touch on something that I'm curious about for you too, Dustin. I think we are at this place, and arts and culture often ends up in the middle of culture wars that exist. I think that there's a lot of assumptions about rural and smaller communities in regards to politics and culture. And you just alluded to one of the things that has been really important is getting involved in some social service activities, pride. I think to many outsiders to hear that you and your husband have made a home in Appomattox, Virginia, and producing theater would be like, what are you doing? Like, get out of there, right? And I this is obviously your home, and so I think that speak to me a little bit about that. I mean, what might surprise us, what might not surprise us about your relationship to that community in regards to the politics of the moment, the culture wars that exist, what you've discovered, what you found in that. I'm really curious about what happens in that space.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a small Bible Belt community. Um, and what you're saying is what my husband felt. My husband grew up in Boston. I met him in New York, and he kept saying, "There's no way I'm going down there." And then
Yeah, yeah.
eventually he, saw the light too and what was happening. And I think there's always going to be, so when we first started here, there was people warned us and pulled me aside when we were starting the Appomattox or Experience Appomattox thing that they a town manager had been fired years ago because they found out he was secretly gay and da da da. And I think it was nice that we weren't secretly gay, so there was no
Yeah,
ammunition
there was
against
no
us
there
from
was
that.
nothing to reveal here, folks,
Just
right?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gay. Yes, I am. And so,
Yeah, yeah.
um, but I also think it goes back to dad's body shop and being jeans boy. No matter what, like I think a lot, I think I've always been of the mentality, we've done shows like Bear. We did Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and we had
Yeah, yeah,
ladies from my church
yeah,
that came in.
everybody, did you hear that? They did Hedwig and the Angry Inch in Appomattox, Virginia, but this is important. Yeah, keep going, Dustin, I'm gonna cut you off.
and no, you're good. And but we had ladies from our church that came to see that, and so I'm a huge believer that you can go on a crusade with your shows and be very much preaching to the choir, or you can open that door and say, I think theater is just a workout in empathy is my like rule for theater. So I want
Mhm.
to make sure we're never scary to people that might you never say, we're a super liberal company that whatever. We did a production of probably the most proud thing we've done is we did a production of Romeo and Juliet. It was set at the historic park. The park let us do it on their grounds, and it was secretly the most liberal thing I've ever adapted, probably. And it dealt with, but it used all the language. We morphed Shakespeare with language from actual accounts of the time in Appomattox, and basically used all that language and just told the story as it was. And there were so many people afterwards that came up to us and were like, "I'll never fly that Confederate flag again. I had no idea what it was like this, and I didn't realize how important the race relations and all this stuff, and how important Appomattox was, and being where a nation reunited, not just like two sides coming together, but it's where the Freedom Bell rang for the first time." And just seeing people like wake up to that, and we didn't advertise that show as anything liberal or anything like that. It was just get them in, come in, see the Civil War show, and then you can make change in that way. And I think Hedwig, same way. No one ever complained. We never had anybody walk out. We never had, and we did
That's
it just like
amazing, Dustin, that's amazing. Like, I do think everybody would assume, right, that would have been like a firestorm for you, right?
yeah. And
And and
but
and
we
for
had
listeners too to know, like, I mean, Wolfbane's in Appomattox, but this is also on the outskirts of Lynchburg, Virginia, where Liberty University is, for some context too, which is a major, yeah, in some ways a conservative think tank in many ways, and so, yeah, I mean, you would think, right? And I love this because it's a surprise, and I think it's an important surprise for people to hear. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we do what we want to do, and we just do it. Like we had Hedwig come in on a pickup truck with an American flag on it because she was riding in late, and we used Liberty as where the other party was performing that night, so we brought it up in the thing. And I think it was enough local, enough fun that people just kind of went with it. And even if people that
yeah,
would have had a problem with it were kind of like, "This is fun, though. I get where they're coming from." So
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Well, and the fun seems to be the theme too, right? So we're talking about building culture, and we're talking about I think creating an environment where artists want to return over and over again, and where audiences are committed, and I'm hearing fun, and I think I'm guessing, right, that probably even some of the acceptance, the willingness, right, to cross the road with you is, I'm sure, because it's well intentioned, right? It's fun. It's
Yeah,
not trying to. I'm guessing here. Tell me if I'm right, right? And I think I heard you say this, is that it's not trying to push something or preach something. It just is. And you can take it or leave it. It's up to you, but it's going to be honest, and it's going to I mean, I love what you said too, right? I mean, you and Ken are open and honest about who you are, and that city manager or that town manager was not, right? And that really, at the end of the day, right, is maybe one of the takeaways.
yeah, I think so. And I think, I mean, I listened to your podcast about other towns to deal with. I'm sure we will have firestorms that come our way with whatever it
Sure.
is. We're waiting for it. But I think as long as you're, being yourself, telling the story you want to tell, I mean, that's all you can do. And then hopefully, I think it is rooted in we really worry about giving our audience a good time. We never do anything to be like, shame you. It's just, I want
Right.
them to have a
Yeah,
good
you should
time.
feel bad
And
coming here. Yeah.
exactly, right. And yeah, I think, get them in the door, make them feel leave uplifted. Even we did the show Bear, which is about uh basically homosexuality in the church, and we had people show it. We were on the news for that one back in the day, and that was before we were any. We're just doing again fun times back in the day, and we were on the news being protested for that. But then like a church group came to protest us, I think closing night, and at the end, the pastor said, basically, I would love to bring more of my church to come see this because it's not what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't preaching. We try really hard to just do story, just tell stories that are good. And that way, if you take away something, if you get moved, you get moved. Not, hopefully you had a good time.
Yeah, I often think maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I think there is so much more that ties us together than actually pulls us apart. It's just that we are not in shared space with each other, right, enough to understand that, and, we're being fed, narratives that tell us that we're supposed to hate the other. And I think one of the things I love about what you all do in your small community is that it really does. It brings people into a room together, um, sharing space and and really knowing who one another are. And it's awesome. You bringing these artists from a larger market into a smaller market, connecting. I mean, going back to previous episode with Worm Farm Institute again, that was also that's part of their deal, right? Is there's sort of this, they call it an urban rural exchange, is what they call it, and both have something to give the other, and I think that's in their work too. In a similar way, there's a thing that they really do, which they call they called themselves what did she say? It was like radically moderate or something. I can't remember what she said. Essentially, the rule was that they wouldn't, right, sort of come at anything directly in a political manner, right? Inherently, stuff kind of lands in the social, deals with social issues, or kind of could enter into the political frame, but they don't present it in that way. And then in turn, people sort of find that they have much more in common than they think that they do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
I
I,
mean,
I think,
we
yeah,
really do. I think that's the heart of it. It's like our audience is so diverse as far as, the two sides of that are coming in, or 17 sides that are coming in together for the show. And I think, yeah, it's amazing that you do see such a divert, like right now in the pub, it's, a tiny little space and you look around and it is such different walks of life that are in that room together, but they all take the same ride together and they all get to talk about it at intermission and they all, are enjoying a beer together, which is just, it's really is a nice moment.
yeah. And I love too, you said too, your jeans boy. I think that's I think a lot of people will relate to that in smaller communities, that you're personal, your person. Um, and then
Yeah.
the others are too. So I want to talk a little bit also about kind of take this in a direction a bit. So one of the things uh, that I have been finding too, so I've found, you share a lot of these qualities that exist, that sort of seen come up over and over again with organizations and smaller communities that have what I like to call longevity as opposed to sustainability. Because I don't know what is sustainable. It's all ephemeral. So it's just about, I think, going as long as you can go. But there's a quality, right, that is also just a little bit of what I would say is luck and a little bit of what I would say is endurance. The luck part being like, how lucky is Appomattox that Dustin Williams exists, right? That it's somewhat lucky, right? That Gene's boy, right, um, decided that they wanted to come back and do this. And that's really lucky for them. And not every community is necessarily going to be lucky and have a jeans boy. The other thing is just like longevity, like just endurance, like people who can just hang in the game, right? And you and I both know, and I think probably most folks that would be listening to this for seeking advice and help know that the nonprofit arts game is really hard. It's pushing a rock up a hill that often rolls back down, then you have to push back up again, and the system's all kinds of broken, and that's a discussion for another time. But endurance. Talk to me a little bit about endurance. Tell me about what keeps you going, man. Because I will say, like, uh, Dustin Williams, everybody puts out more. Him and his team put out have so much energy. You all just go, and to do that. I mean, Dustin, I'm just gonna say it. You're a middle aged man now.
I got white in the beard now.
Yeah, I mean, you're a middle-aged man. I mean, tell me about endurance. How do you do it? What's getting you up every day and keeping you moving?
Well, thank you for all that. That's very sweet. I'm going to leave here with a bigger ego than I came with, but but I don't know. I think I'm a geek. Is the part of it all. I think I get really excited about telling stories, and I again, like, it matters. Again, I think same thing as the actors. It matters to us what our audience is going to experience. It matters so much. These little things I wake up in the night thinking about it, and it is, man. It's nonstop. You gotta, if you're getting into this, I think the blessing we had, I always go back to it, is that I never intended to start with a business. So the majority of building, I can't imagine starting with a nonprofit thinking like, I'm going to pay my whole team and start a business with this. Like day one, I think I would have died. I think that would have been it. But we had the blessing of being like, we're here for 3 months and then we're off to New York
Huh,
for the
yeah.
rest of the year. And then we're here for three. So we really had a soft, wonderful start from that. And then we came in with the nonprofit and we already had an audience built in. So we think a lot of the things that young starting up companies are dealing with, I never had to deal with, and I thank God for that because we were just having fun. But now, man, the endurance, the run of it, I think it is. It's just we love telling stories. We love what we're doing. The growth. It's been. We can't wrap our heads around exactly what's happening because I get like it's our first sold out season. We haven't had a ticket available this whole season, the whole
No, so
year, and
that's
we're going into
incredible.
our
You
last
know,
showing.
and just for everybody to know too, right? This is a moment where theater companies across the country, ticket sales are softening to an incredible degree. So the fact that that's what's going on for you in Appomattox is huge. It's
I
huge.
mean, I don't know exactly what's happening, but we love it, and so
Well, I mean,
it's.
I
I think
think we're getting into some of why it's happening. I mean, I think it's special. Let me ask you this because I find your answer interesting because I think this notion, and I'm sure if we were talking to Ken, Ken might tell me something different, right? Because as you said, you're sort of two halves of the of how you guys run the company, but what do it sounds like some of this is a lack of, or at least in the early days, lack of expectation.
yeah.
And I find that really interesting, and I do think that some things sort of do organically kind of happen, and then just listened to this podcast, and I'd recommended it earlier on my last quick podcast, Dramatically Rural. I recommended this podcast called Reimagine Rural, in it, one of the episodes focuses on this community in West Virginia, and they had this group of artists just sort of found this old coal town and just kind of set up. They discovered it was really affordable to live there, and started a little music spot called the Purple Violin, and then other artists started moving in, and it wasn't like they had like done some sort of economic planning study and like figured out their like 10-year trajectory plan and like figured out, yeah, I mean, like they just were doing this kind of organically, and the next thing they know, they had kind of created an artist hub in the middle of West Virginia, which I think is really sounding a little bit related somewhat to the phenomenon for you all. um what How does strategic planning and forward thinking work into your your work today? Because right, like, because the nonprofit, like, right, like if you apply for any major grant, right, they want to see that you are forward planning. Like I have that beat into me, right, that I must, right, be operating with a strategic plan. Now, and that strategic plan needs to be thorough and it needs to be clear, right? And it needs to run across the entire institution. And I have, in my own arts leadership, I have done that. Now, the one way that I've handled, I think, a little bit of my dealing with the fact that things are sort of just ephemeral, they're constantly changing, is that I won't go past a 3 year. Like we do 3 years, because by the third year, it's all out the door. It doesn't matter anymore. It's all irrelevant because a bunch of other shit happened that you didn't know was going to happen, right? So do you all like how does planning work now that you're a little bit more of a mature company and you're 16 years in? Because it's clear that the special
Yeah.
sauce, it was like we're just going, we're just doing it, and we're
Yeah.
picking it up
Yeah,
as it
you're
happens.
right. Again, like I am very blessed to have Ken and Gabby, who I think you've met Gabby, who works with us. She's our director of development. She's
I
had
did, yeah,
twins.
she's
She's
great, and
remotely
a
working with
performer
us.
too,
She's
and a
great.
performer as well.
And a wonderful performer. Yeah. Yeah, she was pregnant with twins as Mrs. White recently. So she's great.
Yeah,
But I have this great team that's so like me and Christine. Christine is our tech director and builds everything, whatever. We are very much the people we started in the early days, and we were very much the people that were like, let's just do it. And it was kind of haphazard and completely lack of planning. Ken and Gabby are you cannot wake up in the morning without knowing what's going to happen at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, at
okay,
4 o'clock.
okay,
And
okay.
so they love the idea of these strategic plans. They're the grant people. They're the all that stuff. So they're really great because they corner us and make us, this is what we're looking at. This is our 1 year plan. This is a 3 year plan. This is our outlook. And they, will come in and the walls in our lobby are covered in sticky notes for their ideas of plans. And so they come up with all these great ideas, and then we just get to move them around and figure it out and look at what we're projecting. And right now we're looking at a move to another space that's closer to you guys in Lynchburg. And so
Yeah,
tons of planning, tons of numbers every day. I'm inundated with so much of that stuff, and that again, just not how my brain works, but I love it for them. And so I get to, I have that side of the team, that's that side of the coin that is so good at that. And I think it's been really nice to take our messy, organic, just going whatever it is, kind of stuff that happened, and have this team that says, "Great, you're making this product. How do we make this, work into a business sense?" Which I'm not skilled at that at all. I can tell them what I want, what I hope for, the audience, the stuff that keeps me up and makes me excited, and they're able to kind of transfer that into the nonprofit
yeah.
world, which is
But you're still, when hearing that though too, I think that I want everybody to hear though is that there is still a pretty organic responding to what you're finding as you go. It sounds a little bit right. Obviously, you've got people following up behind you, structuring it, creating a sense of boundaries, a sense of destination, right? Because I think you do need that, obviously. But you know, like our own strategic planning here, right, kind of often drives me a little bit crazy in regards to the sort of the way that I operate in life, right, which is similar to Dustin. But like these things are like so structured, right, and like so systematic, and we walk through it, and and I see the value in it. I'm not saying that it's not valuable, but I would also say to somebody too out there that I think these rural environments are their own environments. I mean, it's kind of where we began in these conversations, right? They in the conversation today, each rural environment's a little bit different. The circumstances you're going to find are a little bit different. It does sound like some of the key to success early was the willingness to just sort of roll with it, right? Just
and
got, hey,
and
here, yeah,
it still really is. I think like I like we respond every year on so what the audience is saying. We do an audience choice survey, and we always are trying to up that next level of whatever it is. So like one of the things, I go back to the crucible. The audience chose the crucible. The audience chose the crucible for us, knowing that was a structured plan for us, that we had that. But asking, I wonder what Wolfbane's going to do with this. I wonder how they're going to make this different than what we've seen before. So that's why, oh, we'll hayride you out to the middle of nowhere, build a village out in the middle. We try to, that's the organic side of it. It's like they can pick this, they can pick this side, they can pick, we'll know when it's going to be, how many people it has to be, but then how are we going to flip the script? How are we going to make this something they haven't seen before? And I keep going back in all of our meetings with our marketing. We have a marketing team now that works with us out of Texas, and in all of our meetings with them, we keep landing on amusement park style. Like you advertise it like it's an amusement park because it's a
That's
ride they're
great.
going to. Yeah.
Yeah. I want everybody to hear that too, that also to think outside the box of what the urban model is, what the major metro model is, right?
Yeah, we learned that we did a production of Venus and Fur in maybe 2014, 2015. And I was living in New York and it had just been on Broadway, won the Tony, and I got the rights for it. I was the Virginia premiere, and I thought, surely what's going to sell when we go home is saying the Tony Award winner, Virginia premiere right here in Lynchburg. It's going to be great. And there were days we had 13 people in that audience for that show. It just did not, they, if they knew what the Tony Awards were, it did not matter to them.
Didn't
It
matter.
did not
Didn't matter.
resonate.
Yeah.
And we learned
Yeah.
that very early on from that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I think really important too, right? I mean, yeah, the you're bringing these artists in from from New York, but it's not the New York part, right? Right. It's still the Appomattox part of this is what's really the key ingredient, right? Like
Yeah.
there's training, skill sets, all the rest of it, right, that they bring with them, but it's not their metropolitan background, right? This is what makes Wolfbane
Right.
go, right?
Right, and it's fun. We have an artist coming in for Christmas Carol that we have coming up, and he's got all these like great Broadway credits, like stacked to the gills. But he's also a voice actor and one of the leads in Red Dead Redemption 2 for the video game, and I think that's probably what's going to sell more for Wolfman audiences than anything else. So it's
Yeah,
just
I think you
learning the
ride that all
people.
the way, man. I'm serious.
I'm I'm on it already.
Yeah, yeah, I think you totally ride that. Yeah, I think this is actually really illuminating, and I think really really great to hear. And I would say to everybody, I think, listen, obviously, you have to apply for funding, and they're going to want to see that you are forward planning, that you are thinking ahead, that you're not sort of operating by the seat of your pants. I wouldn't sort of say. I want to make sure we're clear. That's not really what Dustin's saying. It's just that there's a
Don't
much
be like me.
well, well, no, but you need both, right? You have to be organic. You have to respond to the environment that you're in. You have to recognize opportunities when they arise, and they may not look like the opportunities that would exist in a major metropolitan area. They're going to look a little bit different. They're going to operate a little bit different, um, and so I think that is key, really. You know, Dustin, can you imagine if, I kind of asked this a little bit off the cuff here, but can you imagine this having worked if you weren't from Appomattox? Like if you had just like dropped in?
No, I don't think
Yeah,
so. Like I
yeah,
really don't. I don't think we'd have been offered just even the like getting into the town council and being friends with people. I think a lot of that was, hey, Dad, will you call this guy and talk to them and see if I can
yeah,
meet with them? And I think it's possible. I think it would be. Uh, I know that if Ken had tried it without me there, it was always harder for him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's. I mean, I think at the end of the day, right? So much of this is relationships, and
Yeah.
I think is what's great for this is that I was first introduced to Dustin as a student at Lynchburg College and as a young actor in the area, and but it's very clear that meeting Jean's boy today that it's a big part of it. But I also will share with everybody, regardless of being from a place or not, having a love of a place, right, that is
Hmm.
ingrained deeply is probably a key ingredient, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I think like people are talking about, why is Hamilton so successful right now? And I think one of the biggest things is that's it feels like theater, real theater, because it's about where it's at. It's a love letter to New York City about the history of that. That's what theater is. It's for that place. And I think, the more you can make it about the people there, know the people there, know what they want. And, not like I'd say 15% or less of our audience is from Appomattox that actually comes. We're getting, Charlotte and DC and all these different places that are coming, but it's mattering to that small amount of the audience so much, and it's so cool that they're responding to the same thing, and they know it's really for them. And when people come in, they're seeing this is our environment that these people are enjoying as something special that they're not used to. And when they come to the woods, it's something very special for them. And the next door neighbor that has a farm there comes and sits next to people from Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's just really cool to be like, oh yeah, that's my property though, and they're like, this is amazing. So
Yeah, it's
I
awesome
think
for
it's a
both, right? It's
Right,
awesome for
exactly,
both. It's
right.
awesome for the person from Appomattox being like, "Man, these people from outside are coming here," and then it's awesome for the people from outside, like, "Man, I met this farmer and it was
Yeah,
awesome,"
exactly,
whatever, yeah.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, man. It's the beauty of what theater can be. Well, Dustin, well, you all are awesome, and I really have appreciated this today. I always like to end these with advice you might have for somebody out in a smaller community trying to deliver the arts, um, connect to the community in the way that you have, advice that you might want to share with somebody out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest thing, I may have mentioned before, we have a friend that's starting a company that's modeled after Wolfbane out in Michigan right now. And you told me you were going to ask this, and I thought about them because they've been coming to us for advice about it. They're doing Evil Dead themselves right now, and
Love it.
basically, I my biggest advice is if you don't want to see it, you tell the stories you want to see because you keep, and that's kind of like the longevity of it and the sticking with it is you just keep telling the stories you want to see, and there are going to be people like you that are just as geeky or weird or whatever it is that want to see what you want to see out there, and if you build it, they'll come. They'll start coming, and if you can stick with it and find the right niche. But as long as you're honest in telling what you want to see, then that'll come through, and people will know that.
That's great. That's great. And Dustin, tell us where we can learn more too about Wolfbane
Yeah,
Productions.
go to wolfbane.org. That's all of our website. I'll have all the information. You can find us at Wolfbane Productions on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. And Jeff, I want to thank you too. I want to say before we go, like, this podcast is awesome. I've listened to every episode you have, and I brag about you all the time. You're doing the Lord's work for this because there really aren't resources
Well,
for people like us out there. And yeah, if you guys are listening, make sure you share it, tell your friends, and yeah,
well,
get this
Dustin,
thing big.
I will say, this community is really proud of you and you've created something special. So if folks out there are coming through Virginia, certainly the great thing about Appomattox, as Dustin mentioned, is that, there's a major historic Civil War site there. And as you learn too, there's breweries, there's good restaurants to eat now too, because of
Hmm.
Maine, and you can see a great show. And so definitely make a trip. If you're close by or if you're coming through, it's something to add to your list of stops on a journey through Central Virginia, and you can hit Skyline Drive and do all kinds of stuff. I could be a tourism video here, but uh,
Yes.
but Dustin, thank you, man. I really deeply appreciate this, and we'll obviously be talking soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Small Town Big Arts. Remember to rate and review us and share with your friends. To learn more, visit us at smalltownbigarts.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Jeffrey Kirschner.